This is the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. Here's your host, Corey Tusick.
This is the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. On today's episode, I interview actor Stu Stone. Stu's a buddy of mine that I met over 10 years ago on a movie we worked together, and we've worked on a couple more together since then. But Stu I brought on because he made a documentary called The Jack of All Trades. The Jack of All Trades is about baseball cards, and he collected a bunch of them. It was his family business growing up, and he had these baseball cards that he had saved for years, hoping that they would make him rich someday and make him a fortune. And when he went to sell them, they were worthless. And it turns out that Topps and Upper Deck and all the baseball card companies had overprinted all of their baseball cards, and so they made them worthless because they were no longer rare and they were no longer scarce. So I thought, if you're a Bitcoiner, you obviously understand the connection there, because it's some similarities to how the money printer in the United States and all other countries is going crazy right now and devaluing our dollar. So I had Stu on to kind of talk about the similarities there. He does own some Bitcoin, but doesn't, really probably know it as well. He even admits, he's like, I don't know it super well. And it was fun because he got to grill me about Bitcoin and ask questions to try and learn more about it. And I did the best I could to answer them. I'm sure there's experts that are going to listen to this and be like, wow, you totally butchered some of these answers. But I did the best I could. So, I was trying to relate it to him, just friend to friend. And he had also some stories to share. We talked about, what it was like growing up being a child actor. He was the voice of Ralphie on the Magic School Bus, and a character in the show Babar and a bunch of other shows. He was on the TV show Beverly Hills 90210. He was in the movie Donnie Darko, Kicking It Old School, and some other stuff. So we talked about those things, and he gave some behind the scenes stories of what it was like, then also what it was like to go out to LA. He was roommates with Devin Sawa and Phil Glasser, and they kind of had a lot of fun for 18-year-olds that had an apartment and freedom for the first time out in LA with a little bit of money in their pockets. So got into all that, and it was good to chat with him. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. The audio occasionally gets a little rough, just as our Zoom connection, I think, was a little off. So I apologize for that, but I mean, it's still, you can hear everything. And then also my kids jump in at some point towards the end and join the interview for a little bit. You can follow Stu online on Twitter at Stu Stone. That's Stustone. You can see updates there. He's making new movies as well, but he's also working on a documentary with Vice. And the documentary is called The Dark Side of the Ring, talking about the dark side of pro wrestling and WWE and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to get in touch with me, the show Twitter handle is at Bitcoin Simply, and the email is bitcoinmadesimplepodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoy the show. But
my background is luxurious here, but I'm in an Airbnb right now.
Oh, where are you at?
I'm quarantining in Canada. When you cross the border to come back into Canada, they make you quarantine for 14 days.
So you just grabbed an Airbnb and
just in here for 14 days
by yourself? Jesus.
Yeah.
Were you filming down in the States then?
Yeah, I was filming. I've been working on Dark Side of the Ring, the series for Vice. Mm-hmm. It's a wrestling docu-series. Season 3 now they're doing. So I was working on that and just came back to Toronto, and now I'm in quarantine.
Nice. Well, I haven't seen you. Last time I saw you was pre-Pandemania. Do you remember where it was? We were at a Blue Jays game.
Oh, that's so funny.
I was there for the Toronto the International Film Festival, and it was like I was getting a hot dog with like my son, my oldest, and he was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 at the time, and I was just sitting there at the checkout, and I was like, Stu Stone? Like, I mean, I know you're from Toronto, but I was just like, it was hilarious of all places to see you at a Blue Jays game.
Wow, it makes sense for me to be there more than you.
Oh yeah, way more sense. It was like I was like, I'm in you like I was confused as to why you were there, and you were probably like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
But but yeah, the so the funny thing was then after that, during the beginning of the pandemic, my son started watching uh Magic School Bus.
Oh, that's funny.
Like not the new one,
No,
the
the real one.
original. Yeah, the real one.
Yeah.
And so he was watching it for like a month or so, and like really getting into it. And then I was like, wait, I was like, dude, Ralphie in the show.
Yeah, that's
And
funny.
he's like, yeah, because I should back up. So him and he came to me, he knows what daddy does for a living. He said, I want to make an animated show that like teaches kids stuff. And he said that when he was 4. I was like, that's awesome. Let's do it. So we're in the process. We're actually producing like an animated cartoon, and he's going to do the voice and
Oh, wow.
all that kind of stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So we're in the early stages of talking about that. And then he starts watching Magic School Bus. And I'm like, wait a minute, that Stu is the voice of Ralphie.
Yeah, you let me know if you need a voice for your son's cartoon. Ralphie's ready, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just so funny. I'm sitting there, like he could like, I mean, he's been to every film festival around the world. Like he's traveled the world. And it's funny the things that blow him away. Like, and I said to him, I said, you remember that guy we met at the Blue Jays game? And he's thinking about it, and he goes, yeah, like he's got a great memory. And he's like, when we were getting food, yeah. I said, that guy did the voice of Ralphie. And he looked at me like, it's just like, oh my God,
That's great.
So yeah.
Where are you now?
I'm still in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I was just in Pittsburgh.
Really?
I was literally I was doing interviews for that show.
No way.
Yeah.
With who?
In Pittsburgh, we spoke to one of the WWE's like their legal team is all in Pittsburgh. So we were out there talking to them. I wish I could tell you.
Yeah, you can't say more, but
I can't say more, but I was doing interviews in Pittsburgh, and it was way different from the last time I was there because it was completely like shut down. But it looks like things are starting to come back there. It felt good to be back there, but I definitely like couldn't visit there's nothing to do. You can't go do anything.
Yeah, you're just stuck. Yeah. I mean, we're starting to open back up. We went to a Pirate game like a week or so ago.
How was that?
It was awesome. It was like therapeutic, you know what I mean? Just to be out in like society. And it was just, he loves baseball. Like the Blue Jays are his second favorite team.
That's good.
And so we have the MLB package. So we watch the Pirates and we watch the Blue Jays.
The Jays have a good team this year. So
man, and
lots
I
of
love
young talent.
Vladdy,
Bo Bichette, George Springer.
Did you see that guy that caught Bo Bichette's home run?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Crazy.
And he was live on his Instagram.
That's nuts. I hope.
So I wanted to go to the casino because I had made a killing there last time I was in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were frequenting. Those where you were with Crosby's dad, right?
Oh, now see, like nobody believes me on that story.
I've told a couple people before, I've been like, "Oh yeah," like my buddy was taking a piss next to Crosby's dad, and
he's like, "How do I?" I was like, "How do you know that?" He's like, "I'm Sidney Crosby's dad."
That was wild.
We had a couple drinks. The bar was called Bossa Nova.
Oh yeah, I remember that place. That place. I don't
think it exists anymore.
No, that place. They had a rap party for whenever I was a low man on the totem pole working on the movie Unstoppable. They had a big rap party there, and it's where I tease my wife about it because Rosario Dawson and I like struck up like a friendship. It was just like she obviously could tell that I didn't like give a shit about being a PA and like didn't want to follow the rules, so she was like cool with it, and so her and I like hung out that whole night because it was like the first time since she'd been on set that it was like an informal thing. There was like a photo booth, so we have I have these photo booth strips of me and her like hanging out and stuff. And so my wife gives me a hard time. She's like, like name dropping. She'll be like, oh, like there's your friend Rosie. If we see her in like a movie or something, she's like, oh, there's your friend. Like why don't you text her? You guys are best friends.
I think when we were there working, Tom Cruise was shooting. I want to say Jack Reacher.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, he was, and he was cruising around town.
Yeah, he was.
No pun
I saw
intended
him.
around.
I was in a room with him. It was
Yeah.
like pretty wild. And then they were shooting Batman another time when I was there.
Yep. Yeah, I
It's
worked
been
on that
pretty
one
good.
just to be in Gotham. That was but
And
you know,
they did all the car the like Batmobile stuff in downtown, right?
yep, yeah, like the whole final like chase scene, and then
And
they
also
did the
obviously
football
stadium.
game. Yeah. And then it's funny. So you remember it was called Sibling, but
Yeah.
changed to a Resurrection. Um I make that face because that's the competition in the distribution world that I deal with. Do you know why it was changed to a Resurrection from Sibling? So the title was, for those listening, the title of this movie was originally called Sibling, and it was changed to A Resurrection because
Letter A.
I don't want to put anybody on blast, but they said it'll make more money if you put the letter A at the beginning because it'll be at the top of the VOD library on like cable.
And did it work out?
No, because when it went out, when they put it in, they put Resurrection first, comma A.
Yeah.
So it landed down in the R's.
Resurrection A is not
that's a Canadian version.
Exactly.
But so you remember
the great Michael Clark Duncan?
Oh, rest in peace.
Nice man. And his girlfriend at the time, Omarosa, was running around the set.
Yeah, he was one of the nicest guys we've ever worked with.
So cool.
And then so your buddy Devin Sawa was on that, and my wife is another funny story I tell people all the time. My wife, she told me, like at one point, she goes, "Oh yeah, like what movie was it? The Little Giants."
Yeah,
he was in, and she was like, "I had the biggest crush on him from the Little Giants and Casper." Like when she was like 10 years old or whatever.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah, and so I told him that like on set, like I was just like shooting the breeze with him, and like I just mentioned, I was like, "Oh, dude, this is hilarious." By the way, she had like the biggest crush on you. When I told her that night that I said that, she was like, "Oh my god, no, you didn't!" Like she like turned into like the 10-year-old version of herself. She's like, "Please, oh my god, no." I was like,
we all turn into the 10-year-old version of ourselves around Devin, so that makes sense.
Well, if you guys want to
get a sign, did you get a signed picture?
I should have. Like
dropped the ball there.
You if you I don't know if I'm off of Facebook, so but I used to see all the time like him and his wife would go out, and like it was always like making fun of the fact that you were like by yourself, like there was some kind of booth or something. It was like a 2-seater on the one side and a 1-seater on the other side. Is he still active on Facebook?
He's still active, but he's not I think he's moved on from that content.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, about all that. So you're doing a WWE movie, and I'll just give some highlights to the listeners. So this is Stu Stone, who he was in Clifford, Babar, Donnie Darko, Are You Afraid of the Dark, The Magic School Bus, Sorority Boys, Kicking It Old School, and about 100 other things. You got like a really impressive resume. If you go on IMDb and look at it, like, and
you'll have to hire me for something.
Yeah, and that's the legit IMDb resume, because like all that stuff was before IMDb. So it's not like you were one of those people that's an extra now and just goes on and throws their name on a bunch of things.
Yeah, I don't do that.
You actually, have an unnamed.
I actually had to work for those credits.
Yeah, and
not that they didn't have to work, but different kind of work, I guess.
Different kind of work, yeah. But and then one of the most recent things is Jack of All Trades.
Yes.
So Jack of All Trades, give a little lowdown for everybody, is a movie about that. I guess Stu can give us the background, but it's about baseball cards. And I thought that was relevant to the Bitcoin conversation, just because we see the money printer with the central banks kind of printing money like crazy. And you kind of saw something similar, right? So like, I guess start with the background of how you came up with the idea of coming up with a baseball card documentary.
Sure. Well, when I was a kid, our family business was baseball cards. My father and mother ran a chain of baseball card shops in the late 80s, early 90s called Sluggers. There was 11 locations across the, Toronto area and surrounding areas. There was one in Ottawa. There was, there's one in London, Ontario. But basically it was a chain store that sold baseball cards, hockey cards, basketball cards, everything cards. And so that was my life. My life was cards. I used to go to the store. I collected. I went to card shows. I was like all in the craze of baseball cards. And anybody who's of a certain age, which I would say would be between like 35 and 55 and maybe even older, they were around for that baseball card at first push in the late 80s, early 90s. Then they were probably caught up in it too. It was a pop cultural phenomenon. And, before the internet and all, video games and cell phones and all of these things came to be, when life was much more simple, baseball card collecting consumed so many children and like-minded adults who were trying to make money. And of course, there was a bubble that popped eventually. And my dad got out of the business, and I sort of, cards were sort of a scar for me, and I didn't really pay attention to cards anymore after that. And many, many years later, 25 years later, fast forward to all these boxes were found in my grandfather's basement after he passed away. And I knew inside those boxes had to be my collection of cards that I'd put away. And I remember my father telling me, put these away someday, 20 years from now, these will be worth something. And 20 years had passed. And so I decided, hey, we should film me going through these boxes and I'll try to sell the cards and we can film me getting rich. And when I went to go sell the cards, I was offered like $40 for the whole collection. And it sort of sparked an entire movie on what the hell happened there. Of course, there's a personal sort of story in the movie as well with regards to my father, but you'll have to watch the movie, I guess, to sort of dive deeper into that. But the funny thing is that after the movie came out on Netflix, cards became popular again. And now all the cards that were worthless are now selling for 100x. The market went absolutely insane. So much so that I'm actually working on getting a sequel together to sort of show what the hell is happening here. But definitely there was stuff going on in the 90s that caused that original sort of bubble to pop. And we investigated that a little bit in the movie. Definitely we could have gone deeper, but the movie ends up sort of taking a detour in the storytelling at a certain point, and it sort of ends up becoming sort of about myself and my father and our sort of broken relationship that we had that is definitely chronicled in this film. So yeah, a couple things happened after the movie came out on Netflix was that the baseball card market came back huge and bigger than it ever has been. And also my father passed away, unfortunately. So it's a really I'm conflicted on how I feel about all of this stuff, but definitely a personal experience that is unlike any other I've ever had, as far as making a film and seeing what the aftermath of a film can do and have. So
yeah. I gotta say on the personal side of the story, because I was not prepared for that. Whenever I went to watch it, I was like, oh, here's Stu's movie. I gotta check it out, throw on this baseball card documentary, gonna be nice, light watching. Yeah. And then by the end, I'm sitting there I was like, who's cutting onions in here? I'm not crying, you're crying.
No, it turns out to be a pretty powerful piece. And listen, man, I went through this stuff as a child with my father, and it turned out that it wasn't such a unique experience. After it went on Netflix and millions of people had a platform to watch the movie on, and they did, I was definitely hit up by all sorts of people. I would say in the thousands that were writing me that they went through the same thing I did, and how cathartic it was for them to watch the movie and
see that they weren't alone.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it was wow, this is not what I was expecting. But the movie's really, really cool. And listen, the card market has exploded, but the facts haven't changed. The printing runs have not changed since that movie came out. So it's just a whole new explosion. It's a perfect storm. Lightning in a bottle. Yeah, well, it's definitely a bubble. Again, everything is a bubble in this world. Yeah. But I think it's a perfect combination of timing. The movie came out on Netflix. People watched it and remembered their cards. Gary Vee is pumping out cards. There's a pandemic and people are at home and they're not spending money going on vacations and going to restaurants anymore. And they have money to burn and they're stuck at home going through their closets and they want to buy cards again. And, it's the same thing that's happening now that happened back in the 80s. In the 80s, our parents were finding their Mickey Mantle cards in their closets, and they were getting $5,000 for them. And then it started a craze, and people were speculating that, if Mickey Mantle's card is worth $30,000, well, Don Mattingly he's on the Yankees. He's going to be the next Mickey Mantle. We got to buy his rookie card. And then it became like a speculative market of like rookie cards, and, people, it wasn't like this innocent thing of kids playing with their toys anymore. It became a thing where it became a business. Where grownups are coming in and buying the packs and putting the cards in a plastic. Comic books. There's so many parallels to make here, buddy. But the main thing is that like once like collecting something becomes popular, it's over. It's not rare anymore. Like everybody who got a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card in a pack of Upper Deck cards in 1989, nobody threw that in the garbage. Everybody put it in a hard plastic and put it in a box, or they bought Spider-Man comics and put it in a thing with the Mickey Mantle card was rare because people didn't save it like that. Yeah, there wasn't mint condition Mickey Mantles, not to mention the fact that Topps dumped, hundreds of thousands of cards in the ocean because they couldn't sell them. And the card has an actual scarcity to it. So listen, it's a really weird world out there, but like, scarcity is a marketing thing, I guess. I don't know, but like are diamonds scarce? I mean, everybody's got a diamond. Look around. Every single human being on the planet has like a diamond ring, a diamond watch, a diamond. Everybody's got diamonds. So are they rare? And it's like, it's the same thing. It's like
they're as rare as they want you to think they are.
Right. As like something is worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it, basically. And if you can find somebody to buy a Griffey Jr. rookie for 100 or a diamond for 100, it's the same thing. Now, you talk about Bitcoin and the comparisons to baseball cards. I mean, I could see a lot of comparisons, both good and bad. I mean, just playing devil's advocate here. There's definitely like a potential bubble of new money that's come into Bitcoin that's not an informed investor, and people that have FOMO that they see the Lambo guys on Twitter and they're like, they want the Lambos. So they'll throw 5,000 at it, 10,000 at it. And, it's the same sort of thing with baseball cards. The difference is I can hold a baseball card in my hand. The other thing is you talk about like, baseball card companies were just printing cards and printing and printing and printing, and the scarcity of the cards went down and the supply is more than the demand. I mean, you talk about the dollar printing, but there is a difference because baseball cards are not a currency. Baseball cards are a collectible. They're not a currency. They're not, there is value to them, but you can't go into a store and give somebody Barry Larkin rookie card and get a sandwich. Unless you're at like a Barry Larkin fan sandwich shop.
I did sell somebody my skateboard as a kid for a Mario Lemieux rookie card.
That's good. That if you still have that Mario, that's worth a fortune.
Oh yeah, I have it. And I remember the kid thinking that I was getting ripped off. I was young enough to like, I guess you could think I was an idiot, but I was like, I just wanted the card really, but I was like, I'm pretty sure this rookie card is going to be worth more than this skateboard, but here you go.
I mean, but also
like get a Barry Larkin card for a tuna sandwich,
No, but I think like Bitcoin is interesting because, it is supposed to be a currency, but it's not really used as a currency at the moment. I mean, it is, I guess, little bits here and there. Like you can, like I can buy a Tesla. I can buy a few things with it. I can go to a couple like bank machine ATM kind of things. And I suppose there's starting to be some adoption there, but most of the people that are in it to make money. Oh yeah. And so that confuses me because this is supposed to be something that's better than the dollar, and it's supposed to replace the dollar, yet people are in it to make more dollars. And so I don't understand that part of it. That part is sort of an oxymoron to me.
Yeah.
Can you explain that maybe?
Yeah. So that part is what was confusing for me at the beginning. And there was a transition in my mental thinking when I initially put money in, and I thought like, I'll see, like I'll follow these traders, and when it goes up in dollar value, I'll sell it, and then when it drops down, I'll buy again, and I thought I'd buy these, like just keep trading, and then whenever I noticed I did it only a couple times, and I started to like worry that I was going to have less Bitcoin than I was going to have. It wasn't so much dollars, and so that was the transition for me where I was like, oh, I have less Bitcoin and I don't want to have less Bitcoin. And then somebody else. So the people that are really, there's a lot of people, you're right, and they're really probably into like just the crypto exchange and, you know, all the different currencies. They're chasing fiat dollars, you know, they're
right.
Like, look how many.
That doesn't make sense.
But the people that are
mentally,
oh, you good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. But the people that really get it and like are really driving this thing forward is the main, they understand the main point of Bitcoin, and that is that it's a, you know, a store of value that can't be tampered with. It's decentralized, all those things. And what I've had people explain to me is they said, you know, you come into Bitcoin for the number go up, where you see like, ooh, you know, my dollars are going up, but then you stay around for seeing the number go down in terms of how much stuff costs per Bitcoin, you know. So like, you could, what you could have spent 10 Bitcoin on, you know, 5 years ago would right now maybe cost you like a quarter of a Bitcoin. And, you know, it's so if you have your money,
there's so much volatility. Yeah, like there's the story of the guy that like bought a pizza for like a Bitcoin, and like, so that's like a $60,000 pizza.
No, he bought it for, it was the first transaction, I think it was 10,000 Bitcoin. He bought a Papa John's pizza, and let me do the math based on today's it's not going to be pretty. $540 million is what he spent on that pizza. If it was in today's, it was 10,000 Bitcoin. So yeah, so I mean, there is volatility, but like, you know, over time, I mean, we're living in this inflationary world where like the prices for everything keep.
Inflation never goes up. Inflation doesn't go up like 5,000x in a 20-year period.
I'm not talking about inflation. Inflation is the prices of stuff that is bringing in, that is going up and up and up, and it's robbing you of your savings. You know, if you kept $10,000 in the bank from 10 years ago, it would buy you a lot less money, or a lot less purchasing power today than it would 10 years ago.
Right.
So if you put it in, so it's an inflationary, it's a hedge against inflation, which is what I like about it, because if you're gonna, you know, sit on cash, it's just going to keep losing value because they're going to keep raising prices. They're going to keep printing money, you know, and for example, you know, with the baseball cards, like, aren't there some of them where some of the new ones where they're purposefully putting out like a limited supply, which would be like what Bitcoin is, because there's only going to be 21 million. So
yeah, I mean, there's basically, they do like they try to create scarcity in the product now. So like they'll have cards that are autographed. There's cards, it's a whole different world. The cards are autographed. They have pieces of the jerseys in them. They're numbered. So like a 1 of 5 or 1 of 1, like those are worth more because it's like a 1 of 1. But they also like, there's funny ways that they do that, because like a 1 of 1 in every color, like they still find a way to still make the same amount of cards. It's just like that 1 of 1 has a signature and it's a green card. This 1 of 1 is like yellow. This 1 of 1 is blue, but there's still like 5,000 variants of that 1 of 1. But yes, there is definitely, you know, they're playing into the whole, the baseball cards are created to be scarce now, whereas in the old days that wasn't the case. So they're, you know, definitely going to market with that idea. And of course, grading cards became a thing. And so that's a way to take, you know, the old cards that are overprinted and like now you get a graded. And so now your card's a 10 out of 10. That's rare because there's only 100, you know, 10 out of 10s out of the million that are out there. It's an interesting thing. Like the Bitcoin thing is a little bit confusing to a lot of people, obviously, but there are people who get it and they're cashing in. But again, like I still kind of want to go back to that original question, which was like, is it a currency, or is are you gambling? Are you trying to make more fiat? The thing that you're against, you're trying to make more of.
To me, and I think to a lot of the core people, is that it's not, you're not trying to make more fiat dollars. You're trying to increase your purchasing power. And so what
does that mean?
So it means, like so last year Bitcoin was at like $8,000, 6,000, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So it's grown 10x. So one Bitcoin in the spring of last year could buy you, get you like a nice vacation. Whereas one Bitcoin now, if you just held that Bitcoin, you could buy a lot more with it. And so it's not about the value in dollars. It's about what somebody is willing to give you for it. So like you said, you could buy a Tesla for it, for that one Bitcoin now. It's going to be volatile. It's going to change, but there are already some, there's this Lightning network that's creating a payment system. So there are people that are adopting it. And then like the mayor of Miami is all in, and he's like, yeah, this is the way of the future. So I think that the currency part's going to come, but the best way somebody explained it to me is that Bitcoin is like the protocol layer of what the internet is. So like the internet, there's only one internet that you go to, and it's TCP/IP. But like it's not like you might go on to Safari browser or Internet Explorer, and that's a layer on top. So these payment layers are going to get built on top of Bitcoin, and they basically do instant settlements just like Visa does. Because I mean, with the banks and everything, they're just sending digital money back and forth and settling like days later. Like Visa just does all these transactions, and you're, even though you paid for it and it shows up in the bank, right then and there, it's technically not there for like 3 to 5 days. And even then, it's just a ledger system, and they're just typing numbers in. So yeah. So, and also the other thing that a lot of us believe in with Bitcoin is that it's saving the middle class from getting robbed by like politicians and central bankers, because the more money they print, the more they push inflation, the less valuable your savings become. So it's like a hidden tax on the middle class, and it's just crushing them. Like if you look at, there's this great website, then I interviewed these guys. It's called WTF Happened in 1971. And that's whenever the US took everybody off the gold standard. And ever since then, like the wealth gap has just skyrocketed, and like divorce rates, like all these things, like it's just like life has generally gotten worse since we got off the gold standard, and it's been crushing the middle class, which is, the majority. Like it's been helping the elites.
Like, what is the thing that Bitcoin's value is measured on? Isn't it measured on the same, is measured against the dollar isn't it?
For now, it is.
Like when I go look up the Bitcoin price, it's like, it tells me it's worth $60,000 USD. Like, yeah, that's what it's traded on. So it's still traded on the value of whatever the dollar is, isn't it?
Yeah, but eventually,
and believe me, I'm just like, I'm getting an education for you here. I'm just asking the questions that people who would ask that don't know.
No, that's what, and I'm hoping to give the like Neanderthal version of Bitcoin explanation so that like the average person can get it. So there's probably some like really smart people there like, you're explaining this wrong. I'm trying to, bring it down to the level that I understand it. But so right now it is measured in dollars, but eventually that will change.
And what will be measured on?
Just how much Bitcoin you have. It'll be the Bitcoin can be broken down into 100 million places, and then there's arguments you can even break it down like infinitely beyond that. But there's only 21 million that'll ever exist. And
is 21 million a rare thing? Like if there was 21 million Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards, would that be a good card?
Well, if the entire world is operating on that currency,
right,
then one of the original people that was running it, he even figured then, he nailed it. He said, it's not a currency yet. There has to be layers on top of it to be able to transact at a higher volume. But he said, as far as the value goes, if the entire world total value was divided by 21 million, like one coin would be like, I think it was like $10 million or something like that.
But is there a scenario where the whole world will be using Bitcoin is that what you're predicting? Is that like what you're hedging on or betting on? Is that like someday the global economy will only run on Bitcoin?
Yeah, eventually it will, because at this point, so what they've done is they've been printing money. This is what made me go all in. So in 2008, they had the financial crisis, and that's when Bitcoin was launched, and they bailed out all the banks by just literally creating new dollars. And so last spring, this is what made me go all in. I see they're about to print money because of COVID. And I was like, well, you can't just add new money to the system without affecting its value. Like, that's a really bad idea to just print cash. I was like, so I'm going to get into Bitcoin. And then I learned that they'd been printing ever since 2008. And nobody knew about it. It's this thing called quantitative easing, where they just keep injecting new dollars into the system to keep the markets afloat. So basically, I think it was between 2000.
Doesn't that sound a lot like Bitcoin to you? Like, isn't that the whole tether Bitcoin thing?
No, because Bitcoin, you can't change the amount. You can't add new Bitcoin in.
Right.
So with the USD, they have with the US dollar, they as of 2020 in the spring before COVID, like 20 to 25% of dollars that were in circulation didn't exist before 2008. And then they started printing even more because they had to prop the markets up specifically because of COVID. And now they're on this never-ending printing spree. So like at this point, 50% of the dollars in circulation did not exist before 2008.
Okay, so the two incidents that you're speaking of, one of them was the economy, which would have the collapse of the economy in 2008. The other one is COVID, which is another kind of potential collapse for an economy, obviously a world economy. Mm-hmm. But if they didn't print the money, what would have happened? Like, wouldn't the U.S. have gone bankrupt?
Well, that's the thing, is that I think they've backed themselves into a corner where they kind of had to do it. Like, they've been kicking the can down the road for years. It's been poor monetary and fiscal responsibility for decades. And especially ever since they went off the gold standard, as far as I understand it, it's basically been mismanaged. They keep kicking the can down the road. And I remember in 2008 kind of realizing that, like reading about like, okay, Bush, they were like, hey, let's bail out the banks. And they just kicked the can down the road. And I was like, oh man, we're going to pay for that someday. And now
what happens if they didn't bail out the banks? That's what I'm trying to ask. Like, what would happen?
I mean, there would be a painful period, and there'd probably be a depression, I would assume.
So like, don't you think that they had no choice but to do that?
That's what I mean. They put themselves into this position where they had to, because they printed, I mean, they've been printing money since 1971, but it has to over time keep ramping up. So if you look at the money supply, like the number of US dollars in circulation just kept going up and up and up and up, and then it's just,
did they destroy any of it?
No, because it's not even the cash. It's all digital dollars. It's all on a ledger system.
Sure.
So they don't destroy it. Like they take dollar bills off the out of circulation and burn it, and stuff like that. But yeah, so what they have been doing is just been increasing the money supply, and Bitcoin is basically this thing that will absorb all of the capital, because people who have money don't want it to lose value. And so that's why Elon Musk bought $1.5 billion worth, because he was like, whoa, if I just sit here and keep this 1.5 billion in cash, it's going to lose 30% of its value in a year. Whereas if I put that in Bitcoin, it might be volatile day to day, but like over the long term, it's only going to be more finite, because there's less and less of it available as time goes on. So they so yeah, so that's why, it is priced in dollars at the moment. And like you said, I think it would personally, I think it would have been, kind of like catastrophic to not bail out the banks. They didn't have a solution to get out of their system, but it's also kind of like their own Ponzi scheme. So at this point, to me, Bitcoin is like the safest and like least violent way for them to get out of the mess they've created. And it's not going to really be to the benefit of the countries and everything like that, but it's going to be to the benefit of the average human.
I have a few questions based on what you just said, and I definitely think that's very good insight that like definitely explains your stance a lot better to me. I have a couple questions though for you on this, and I'm not.
Right, I love it.
I'm not painting you as like you're the Bitcoin, and I'm asking. You're.
Yeah,
I'm not.
No. I love this. I love actually having the tables turned on me and taking the questions. This is fun. So
well, I mean, I think like question number one: Bitcoin is supposed to replace what?
The U.S. The currency system.
Yeah, we'll call it the U.S. dollar for the sake of. So, what do you use to get Bitcoin?
Use the current dollars.
Yes, and then when you want to cash in your Bitcoins because they went up, like what do you get back for them?
That's the thing. You don't cash them in.
So people just don't like hold. So isn't that go back to the baseball card theory of like my dad telling me to hold and don't sell, and then they can keep money coming in, and people, if everybody's waiting 20 years, the 20 years never comes, or by the time it comes, everybody's left like that going to happen here?
It won't happen with Bitcoin because Bitcoin will.
So there's protection against that?
Because it's a hard cap of 21 million that'll ever exist. So yeah, let me explain that too for you if you don't know. So there's 21 million that'll ever exist, and every 10
you know that because
it's in the code. It's a decentralized computer code running on all these different computers, and nobody can change it.
Okay.
So it's 21 million that'll ever exist, and the issuance schedule is going to take, like right now there's 18, close to 19 million in circulation. The other 2.5 million Bitcoin will be entered into the economy until like 2140, like that year to 2140. So it's the supply is lessening as time goes on. It's built into the program. Every 4 years, the supply gets cut in half, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller. So let's say with baseball cards, if you had, say, your dad got in at the ground floor and it was like, look, the entire, I mean, we won't say 21 million Griffey cards because, that wouldn't be valuable and people aren't going to transact them. But let's just say it was like there were going to be, 210 Ken Griffey cards. And at the beginning, your dad got like 30 of them, and you're like, holy crap, like I got 30 of them. Like these are valuable. And it's like, there's only going to be 210 that ever exist. And like next year, there's only going to be 15. And the year after that, there's only going to be like 7.5. And it'll keep going that way all the way down to there's 210 total. So by that time, your value will have gone through the roof.
Where is the 200? Where are the missing like 200? Where, like if I have 30 of them, where's the other 180 of them? How do I get those? I have to like mine for them?
Well, yeah, you would. Yeah, in Bitcoin, you would mine for them. So that's
like I'd have to go buy cases of cards and just keep opening up packs till I get the Griffey.
Yeah, and it would get more expensive because the issuance schedule gets smaller and smaller. So like right off the beginning, like they had like, let's say there was you buy a box of cards and there's 200 cards in it, and you maybe had like you probably guaranteed maybe to get one Griffey in that box of 200. So it was like you bought a box of cards for $5, and
right. So
Griffey in there.
If I'm mining for Griffies, then who makes the money when I'm mining for Griffies? Who makes all the money?
Well, in this scenario, whoever you're buying the cards from,
the baseball card companies are making.
This is different because you're paying for electricity to mine Bitcoin, so that's what they cost.
So is electricity is upper deck is electricity, and finding the Bitcoin is getting a Griffey Jr.? Does everybody who mines get a Bitcoin? Like, can I mine and get nothing?
It's basically a pure random chance, but it equals out so that people that mine, they look at it as like, say they're gonna have like $3,000 in electricity costs, but they'll get like $4,000 to $5,000 worth of Bitcoin.
And so you're gonna when you mine, you don't just like hit a Bitcoin, you hit like 1/100th of a Bitcoin.
Depends. Some people, if you're in a part of like a mining pool,
how does that work?
So big.
Yeah, how does it work? Like, it's just so confusing. How does it work? And so I set up my computers, and they're like trying to find like one fraction of that Griffey Jr.
What they're doing is solving the algorithm that will solidify the blockchain, the next block in the chain of transactions that happen, and that algorithm gets harder the more computers are trying to figure it out. So the more, say you have a bunch of computers that are trying to find that box of cards that has one Griffey in it.
How does that work? Like, what are they looking for? It's like somewhere in the deep web, there's like numbers going. Like, how does that work?
It's as far as I understand, it's a math equation, an algorithm.
Like, are you on some website trying to answer a math equation? Like, where do you mine?
It's all the computers connected together talking to each other.
And where are they mining it from? Like some magical place?
No, on the computer.
It's like right. So is it through the internet?
Yeah.
So where is there like a web? Is there like a sandbox that they're all digging in, that everybody's digging in?
I think the sandbox that they're digging in is basically the original code.
I'm so confused.
And dude, don't trust me. I'm like a little out of my element with understanding the code part of it. So people listening to this will be like, what the hell?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand. So it's like, if I want to mine a Bitcoin, I get a bunch of computers to talk to each other, and they're all trying to find this mathematical code that, like, if you get the code right, you're going to be rewarded with like here's a little something for you.
So if you solve the block right now, the reward, it happens every 10 minutes roughly. And you get, right now you get, was it 6.25 or 6.5 Bitcoin or something like that, 6.25. And then in about 3 years from now, that will get reduced down to like 3.75 or something like that. It keeps getting halved and smaller and smaller. So that's what I was saying. So look at it this way. So with the Griffey baseball card, like I said,
so it's like digital gold.
That's exactly what it is. Digital gold.
So what's better? What's better, digital gold or physical gold?
Digital, because you can transport it.
Right.
You can transport it, you can teleport it around the world. Because physical gold's great for store of value, scarcity, and there's a certain number of properties of money. I'll send you this guy, Robert Breedlove. He breaks it down really good. But there's like 5 values of money, and one of them is portability, but you can't really transport large amounts of gold very easily. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can send it anywhere instantly. And like, not that I condone the person that is in jail or whatever they did, I don't even know. There was this guy somewhere in Europe who like got arrested, and they took him to jail, and they said, "Oh, we have your Bitcoin." And it was like they had his flash drive, but he had the password memorized, and he didn't write it down anywhere. And he was like, "You don't have my Bitcoin." And they're like, "No, we have your flash drive." And he was like, "It doesn't matter." He's like, when I get out of jail, I will go somewhere else, and I will be able to download my Bitcoin. So the transportability is what makes it better than gold. But it is funny, you nailed it. Like, it is digital gold. It is a scarce asset that is never going to be.
But it's not a tangible asset.
No, it's basically an accounting system. It's like a worldwide spreadsheet saying who has what amount.
Has what, right. So what happens if I put my money in the bank?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying that's bad, but I put my money in the bank.
Yep.
And then someone walks in the bank with a fucking machine gun, and they rob the bank. What happens to my money?
Well, it's FDIC insured.
Right.
So the government will print more money to replace it.
So what happens now if I put my Bitcoin in a secure place and somebody steals that Bitcoin? What happens to my money?
If somebody stole your Bitcoin, then you would lose it. So that's the one risk trade-off is that you have to be more you have to be more responsible with your money. Like you have to take personal responsibility.
Like if I forget my ATM code at the bank machine, doesn't mean that I'll never be able to get my money out of the bank again.
Well,
but if I forget my code to get Bitcoin, then that money's just gone forever.
It depends on how secure you want it. So like you can do it so that you have plenty of backups and it's still secure. But then there was this guy who, I don't know if you saw the news article, but he put it on a wallet.
And he's like going and like
the passcode.
He threw out the hard drive and they're like digging up. Is that the same guy? They're
no. There's a different guy. He has the hard drive, but he bought one that only had. You can only try the password and fail 10 times. Once you fail the 10th time, it locks forever. And he's guessed 9 times and hasn't figured it out, but he doesn't remember his password. So it's like, if you want to go that route where you're going to put it on something like that, then it's like, okay, you better make sure you remember this password. And he did it back when Bitcoin wasn't as valuable. So it was like, he was just like, oh, whatever. And then he found it and he was like, oh my God, there's like, $100 million worth of Bitcoin on here. And I don't remember what the password was.
So if a bank gets hacked and someone steals the money from the bank, what happens to your money?
It gets replaced by.
It's insured.
Yep. Yeah. FDIC.
So, and if Coinbase or one of these places gets hacked and money goes away, you don't get that back?
I don't know with Coinbase what they're.
Okay, maybe not them specifically, but like where you're holding your Bitcoin if it gets hacked.
That's the beauty of it. If you put it in a secure wallet, it can't get hacked.
But then how do people keep getting hacked?
People get hacked because they put it in non-secure places. So you have to do your own research and figure out what's going to be secure. Like I like this one. It's called Cold Card. And it's basically you download it onto your Cold Card and it's there. But yeah, there's people, I mean, if they leave it in a place where it's exposed to, being attacked, then it could get attacked, but they would have to know your seed phrase. They'd have to know your password, all that kind of stuff. And you'd have to just be careless with it.
So there's nobody, like for the dollar, there is like a treasury that like technically has to like answer for this, that, and the other thing, right? And in Bitcoin, is there a treasury?
There's no treasury, but the thing is, the treasury for the US, it's just like made up. They just create more money.
I'm saying, like, technically speaking, like you said, my bank gets robbed. I had $10,000 in that bank. Some guy walked out with that 10,000, but my 10,000 is still there because of whatever you said. Like it's insured. Yeah. So there is no insurance. Like you're trading off that insurance. So there is a risk, right? An increased risk because of that. People, if your money is hacked from your bank, you're protected, but you're not protected in Bitcoin. It's like a wild, wild west still. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it's not that like it's a wild, wild west. It's just that
like there's no governing body.
Yeah, there's no governing body. And
there's no one to write a complaint to, like, dear Bitcoin, what do I do here? There's dear
Bitcoin, dear Satoshi Nakamoto, please send me my money that I lost. No, I mean but I think there's a lot of power to that because it brings back personal responsibility, and like in thinking about it in like a bigger picture of the world.
If someone loses like 30 million, it's like, yeah, oh well, you should have had more personal responsibility.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that'll happen in the future because back then they were like, they didn't know how much it was going to become worth. And so they were just kind of being like loose with it. But in the future, it's, people were going to understand and take nobody's going to take that risk where they could lose 30 million. But yeah, it's because the problem is once you introduce a governing body, then you have to trust them. And if we've seen anything is that governing bodies and humans in general are not very good to trust. Like you should trust very few people. Like that sounds really cynical, but like, you can't just give these faceless people responsibility to not, like, hey, don't mess with the money supply, don't enrich yourself by inflating my savings away.
So if there's like a watchdog that's like watching over people in the fiat world from doing that type of stuff, and I'm sure it does happen, but people do get caught. How does that work in this crypto world? Is there a watchdog that's looking out, or I know there's a blockchain where you can see transactions, but is there somebody that's like, hey, what was that? Or, hey, that shouldn't have happened.
So yeah, basically there's like a double spend. Like that's one of the problems and I don't know this super well, but I know that Satoshi Nakamoto solved the double spend problem. And I think that came through the proof of work. So that's what all the miners are doing, is all the miners are keeping the bank ledger that the entire world of Bitcoin runs on. And that basically that spreadsheet breaking down like who has what and what goes where. Every single miner is running that. And so what they do is through the algorithm, they come to a consensus that this is the number of transactions that happened in the last 10 minutes on the blockchain. They all come to that consensus, and then they solidify it on the blockchain and move to the next block. So it actually protects itself. It's its own watchdog as the miners keep running, it's its own watchdog, protecting it from double spends, making sure that this doesn't look like it added up right, and it'll discard it, and that transaction goes away.
Okay, that makes sense. It does. Here's a bonus question on that. Nice. So one day Bitcoin, you're saying, is not going to be measured against the US dollar because it's going to be its own thing. But let's create a hypothetical scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if tomorrow, God forbid, but tomorrow, Bitcoin is worth $0 US? What does that mean for Bitcoin? Like if the US dollar is no longer applicable with Bitcoin, you understand what I'm saying there?
Depends what you mean. Does that mean that the US
you can no longer cash it in for US dollars? Like it's not, US dollars are no longer involved.
Does that mean that the US dollar doesn't exist anymore as an entity, or are people still using US dollars?
People are still using US dollars, but like it's no longer the measuring, like it's no longer in a part of the Bitcoin equation. So the Bitcoin is worth $0 US. So what happens to Bitcoin?
First of all, that could never happen only if the US dollar went away, because the US doesn't have control over what it's measured against, what the
sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
But if all currencies went away, like you said, if the value went to zero, then
is it still worth something? If it's worth $0 American dollars, is there still value in a Bitcoin?
Well, so if it goes to zero, in theory, you'd have to.
Not that it's going to happen. I'm just creating this hypothetical conversation.
If it went to zero, in theory, it would be worth nothing. But at the same time, there's enough people using it that I could go to somebody like Elon Musk and say, hey, I'll give you 1 Bitcoin for a Tesla. And if he says yes,
you can go
then it's worth the market value of
Tesla.
So, at this point, there's enough circulation of it that enough people use it. You should check out this one interview I just did recently with Bitcoin Beach down in El Salvador. And it's like lifting people out of poverty, and they created a circular economy where like everybody, you can pay for everything in Bitcoin, go to the supermarket and buy things. And so that payment method is one, but it's interesting to see that like, this is basically, I see it as a like prototype for the rest of the world to operate off of eventually. And the only way, so like what would kill Bitcoin is if central banks and governments stopped printing money and started getting responsible and actually created a deflationary environment where your dollars bought more over time. The longer you save the dollars, the more money you have, essentially. That's what would kill Bitcoin. But at this point, we're so far past that they can't stop. Like you said, they've reached this critical mass where, like, what would happen if they didn't print the money and let these markets crash? Like,
It would be devastating.
Yeah, it would be devastating. So even whether or not governments understand it, I think it's in their best interest to just have this off ramp.
What if could the U.S. government be like, Bitcoin can no longer be traded in the U.S.? If they did that, what would happen? I guess nothing, because people still play poker on sites that are hosted elsewhere or whatever.
What happens when things get banned? It becomes more popular.
Yeah, it probably, like, the best press that could be for Bitcoin would be that, maybe.
Oh yeah, the value would go through the roof. I mean, maybe it would take a little hit, because people get scared, and then eventually there's some countries that have tried to ban it, and like what's the country in Africa? I don't want to say a name because I'm going to be completely wrong, but there's a country in Africa that just banned it like a couple months ago. And it's the activity there on Bitcoin went through the roof. Like, more people were buying it after it got banned. And it's one of those, countries where like Venezuela and other ones where they're printing their cash into oblivion, and that's something that people in the US and Canada and UK don't really get, that like that's a real thing that can happen. Like,
is that sort of like a worst case scenario, or is that something that's going to happen?
Well, it's gonna happen because
you think in our lifetime that's gonna happen?
I think in the next couple of years.
Really? Wow. Sorry about that.
No, that's good. Like they've.
You think in the next couple of years that's going to happen? That's pretty grim if that's true.
I mean, I would say within the next decade, we're going to see massive inflation that is going to be, through the roof. I mean, you already see it now. Have you seen with like the housing market, how crazy everything is?
Of course.
And it's just like,
I mean, listen, I hear you. It's loud and clear. And by the way, full transparency, I own Bitcoin and I own Ethereum. So I have a foot in the water.
Yeah.
I play the game, but I also question a lot of things because I'm just a cynical person. So yeah, like I'll play the game, but I'll still like complain about the rules of the game while I'm playing the game. So like, yeah, I grew up with, some of my friends that were child actors with me have become huge proponents in the Bitcoin world that, I've seen it firsthand. Mm-hmm. Like in the early days where no one knew what it was, I was right there getting it explained to me then. And the funny part is that like the same questions I had then are the same questions that I have now. So it's like, it's always interesting to strike up a conversation with a guy like yourself because everybody sort of has a different spin on it. But like, I've yet to sort of get that aha moment where like, I completely am like, yes, now I see exactly what this is. Like I've never 100% seen exactly what this is. I see something that was once worth zero that is now worth $60,000. I'm happy I'm a part of that. But I also still am confused of how we got there. And, it's like,
yeah. Well,
but I'm happy that we got there. I'm just confused of how we got there. And I know that people are predicting it's going to go even further and further and further. And I hope that happens because I'll be excited about that. But again, I'll be like confused as to like how we got there. So maybe I'm not the only one that thinks like that. I also don't understand the stock market completely and I'll blindly invest in this, that, and the other thing. So there's a lot of guys like me that are good for the Bitcoin market. But at the same time, does Bitcoin depend on new money always coming in? Like if people stopped trading today, what would happen to the value? It would go, if the trading volume went down, what would happen? Like, does it always depend on the trading value to be high in order for it to go up?
The best thing in the world that could happen would be if people stopped selling it. Because like you said before earlier, like for every sale, there's a buyer and a seller.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's, I saw somebody say this before, they were like, if we all just stopped selling the Bitcoin, like the value would go through the roof.
Yeah.
If we never traded it. And that is part of what I think it's like 78%.
That would make it rare if everybody held it.
Well, 78% of the Bitcoin, like if people are worried that like people are going to sell it and it's going to go down. I think like 78% of Bitcoin have never moved. Like people have bought them, like 78% of them and
Yeah, I saw something on that actually.
so like there will be people will always buy and hold. Like for me, like a large chunk of it is just retirement. Like
Right.
I have no intentions of touching it for over 30 years. And so it's like, as far as the day to day goes, it doesn't bother me. Um, uh, so yeah, I mean, eventually, the reason Bitcoin,
I think that I'm like not where you are yet. I think that I'm like still the big skeptic that will go to the magic show and I'm watching it and the illusion is amazing. But I still am like, how the fuck is this even working? Like I'm still very much in that camp, and I'm just being honest. But yes, I still buy a ticket and watch the magic show, and I love the magic show. But I also leave there being like, I know how they die. Something's up with that. That was a trick.
I should try and get to get this Robert Breedlove on the show. If I get him on with me, then I'd have you come on, because I feel like he's like dude, he's like a philosopher, and the way he talks about stuff. Somebody said it was like taking like an whatever that DMT trip is,
right,
where people think they can like see the fabric of reality, and like he explained it like really well. He did a 4-hour podcast with Lex Friedman, and yeah, it was like a 4-hour stint. It was great. I recommend it to everybody. Yeah,
I mean, I would be down for that. But my advice, if someone was asking me about crypto, I would say that still at this stage in the game, like if you don't have a situation where you have a pocket of money that you can like play with, so to speak, like I don't know whether I would recommend them doing it or not. Like at this point, yes, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, it could be a different world where Bitcoin is number one. But in the current place where we live now, you still need $1 to buy that tuna sandwich. So it's like, if your family like needs money to like pay your rent, like I wouldn't necessarily be like, hey, give me the $10,000 that you needed for your rent. We're going to buy Bitcoin. I don't know that I would recommend doing that now to them. What do you think about that?
What I recommend to people is they call it dollar cost averaging. So like, because like you said, most people don't have like pockets of cash where it'd be like, all right, I'll just dump that in there. So, it's like if you can put an extra $100 a month away, even if it's, $150 or, $50 a month, and put it away. And instead of putting it into a savings account, you put it into Bitcoin, and just, they call it dollar cost averaging because people look at the price. They go, oh my God, $60,000. I can't afford that. And that scares them away. But if they look at it as, instead of like, oh, I got in at this price, if it keeps going up 10 grand a month, but every month you keep putting $100 in, you'll just keep accumulating, and you're just an average value of what you got in at. You take the total US dollars that you put in and divide it by the number of Bitcoin you got, and it might end up somewhere, like there's this one billionaire who he has like $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. The first 500 million he bought at like 15,000 or 10,000, and he keeps buying. So like right now, all the Bitcoin he owns, he got at like an average value of like 27,000, because he keeps just accumulating as time goes on. So it would have been even though he bought some early and he just bought some recently, it would be the equivalent of him buying all of the Bitcoin he has at 27,000. So it's better to do that than to just sit there and go, oh, I'll save up $1,000 and then buy Bitcoin. It's like, oh no, like, find something, and I know for people, like, money's tight, especially in the times of COVID, but it's like, look at like your monthly budget, find something that you can do without. You could find $50 worth of something that you could do without, and your life will be much better off in the long run by saving it in something that's going to go up in value and can't be devalued by governments and central banks. And like, what'll blow your mind, did you know that the Federal Reserve in the US is a private company? It's not a government agency.
I did not know that.
That blew my mind when I found that out recently. It's a private company. Look up what the hell happened on Jekyll Island, or the monster from Jekyll Island is like a book or something. And like when they established the Federal Reserve, I think in like 1913, this group of people, like wealthy people, went to an island off of the coast of Georgia, I think, literally called Jekyll Island, and what was created there was the Federal Reserve, and they have the authority to print new money, issue new money, and it's a private company. How the F is that possible? So it's this group of elites that manipulate the supply for their own.
I'm reading right now. I just looked it up. The answer is both. While the Board of Governors is an independent government agency, the Federal Reserve banks are set up like private corporations. Member banks hold stock in the Federal Reserve.
Isn't that crazy? So they're just getting richer by printing money. That's the thing. They don't hold cash. All the rich people don't hold cash. You know what I mean? Like they don't have that much cash on hand. Everything's in hard assets that appreciate in value,
like real estate and Lamborghinis.
Yeah, and
art, baseball cards.
Baseball cards should be, yeah, a Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, getting back to the baseball cards, I mean, if you look at it, so like the Honus Wagner, a shout out to Pittsburgh, are born and bred, but that's like the most valuable card ever, right?
No, I mean, not anymore. Now it's like some like LeBron James like NFT card or something. It's like
some LeBron James dunk.
It's like a different world now. But yes, technically speaking, that should be the most valuable. Yes, the Honus Wagner card, the Mickey Mantle rookie card, a Babe Ruth rookie card would be good. Wayne Gretzky rookie card should be good. Michael Jordan rookie card should be good. I mean, these are guys who, you're not speculating on these guys. And I think Gary Vee says sort of the same thing. It's like, I'm not speculating that some guy's going to have a 20-year career. Like Michael Jordan's stats are not going to change. He's still going to be Michael Jordan. Yeah. And same thing with these proven kind of entities. And I think it's sort of like an ageist sort of marketplace. It's like the people who grew up idolizing, that's your market. So it's like people who grew up watching Griffey Jr. are going to care more about a Griffey Jr. rookie than some kid that doesn't know who even Griffey Jr. is. Mm-hmm. Our parents grew up watching the Yankees and Mickey Mantle and blah, blah, blah. That's why Mickey Mantle's, they passed that on to us. But they passed that on to us. Now we know Mickey Mantle is something because our parents told us how great Mickey Mantle is. And enough people's parents loved Mickey Mantle that he stood the test of time. Babe Ruth, test of time. Michael Jordan, same thing. Wayne Gretzky. Nobody's ever going to break Wayne Gretzky's records, ever.
No.
So if you collect hockey cards.
Even though Mario Lemieux is a better hockey player, but.
I mean, it's a different hockey player, but Mario Lemieux is definitely
the most talented that ever existed.
I think that I would say that it's hard to argue with what you just said, and I will say that, like for me,
never challenge Gretzky's record.
You can't challenge Gretzky because he's an anomaly. Mario never put up those numbers, but he was the closest thing to it. And maybe had he stayed healthy, he could have actually challenged for some of these records. But Mario is a different player. He's a hockey player. Gretzky's a finesse guy. He makes plays.
Mental.
He passes. He can score. He can do all that stuff. Whereas Mario Lemieux could pass. He could score, but he could also beat the crap out of you. He'll go in the corners with you. It's a different guy. It's a more complete sort of hockey player.
I love that we had to get into Gretzky versus Lemieux. Like that's.
I mean, it's funny because it's like a Jordan versus Kobe or Jordan versus LeBron. Like Gretzky and Lemieux is an interesting conversation because they played at the same time.
Yep.
Like Jordan and Kobe played like a game against each other, whereas Gretzky and Lemieux played with each other against each other. And Mario won Mario won cups and Gretzky won cups. Like these, the comps are very, very interesting on them. More people know who Gretzky is than Mario Lemieux. So Gretzky probably wins in the PR department. But anybody who grew up in Pittsburgh, the answer is going to be Mario.
Yep.
Crosby's amazing too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Crosby's amazing. I mean, Ovechkin, it's like his goal scoring's through the roof. You can't deny that. But he also,
the thing that Ovechkin has going against him is that he's Russian. And so like Canadians like Canadians and Americans like Americans. And they don't.
Well, even Canadians, you guys were against Mario because he was a francophone. He was from
Quebec.
Well, they were.
We liked him for the Canada Cup.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So growing up, one of my favorite. This has nothing to do with Bitcoin, but whatever.
Yeah.
Growing up, one of my favorite hockey players, was a guy named Pat LaFontaine.
Oh, he was great.
He wasn't Canadian. He was an American guy, and I'm Canadian. It was like blasphemous that like one of my favorite players was this American
for Buffalo.
Played for Buffalo, the New York Islanders. He was like a really good player. But anyway, in 1990 something, I don't remember, but when Mario left, he took time off because he had Hodgkin's cancer, and LaFontaine was leading the league in points for the first time. And he was having his big year, and I was so excited, and he had like more points than anybody. And this was like finally the year. Then Mario comes back from
cancer,
cancer treatment. And now with like 3 months left in the season, not only does he catch LaFontaine, he passes him and wins the scoring title. Like that's how good Mario Lemieux is. He's in another category. Yeah, he's in a league of his own. Is my point.
Oh yeah, that's why I say if he had Gretzky's health, he would have all the records, but he didn't. Yeah. So you have to get
because he played a different game than Gretzky did, but also he had cancer. I mean, obviously that had nothing to do with hockey.
And
he had a physical game.
Had to play like I always laugh because even though they played at the same time, Gretzky had like 4 years before Lemieux, and like in the 80s, goalies wore like shin pads. You know, like right. they.
But at the same point, even though not everybody was scoring 100 goals just because the goalies had those pads, he's still, you know what I mean? It's like there's still that. But Gretzky,
you know, every time I go to Gretzky's restaurant in Toronto,
which is closed now, by the way.
They closed it.
Yeah,
because of the pandemic, like it just couldn't survive. That's a shame.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened.
Well, every time I went there, I would get the 99 burger, but I would make them serve it to me as a 66 for Lemieux. And I always had and my wife would roll her eyes because I had to like tell the story to the waiter or waitress as to why I wanted a 66. And I'm like, and they were like, what are you going to do if Gretzky's ever here? I was like, honestly, I mean, I'd just tell him to his face. I'd be like, you have all the records, everything, no disrespect, but Mario's a better hockey player. And that would drive Gretzky nuts because I don't think he really liked Mario. You know, he's a little selfish there, but yeah. So do you have any of your child actor friends that are public about Bitcoin that you can?
Yeah, I mean, Brock Pierce, number one. I mean, doesn't get bigger than him in the Bitcoin world, I don't think. He was a child actor. He was in the Mighty Ducks movies, and he was around. Like, he was my buddy, and he was one of the very first kind of guys that was very outspoken about Bitcoin, and he's made a lot of money doing it. He actually ran for president in the last election. You know, he's a colorful guy, Brock, for sure, and he's been sort of ahead of the time when it comes to this crypto stuff, for sure. Zach Ty Bryan, who was on the Home Improvement show, that's Brock's buddy. They were in the movie together, First Kid with Sinbad. Brock got Zach into it early, and Zach's now made a fortune doing Bitcoin stuff. So, you know, I have a couple of buddies. Those two specifically are very, very heavily invested in Bitcoin, and they've both done very, very well. And, you know, they look like the smart ones because they told us so.
Really early, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, Brock got in at $1. You know, it's like these guys are killing it.
So for people now, this is like less Bitcoin related, but what's it like? How do you get into being a child actor? Because I mean, how did your career start? Basically, you know, how old were you? I was like 2 or 3 years old. I was a little kid.
It's much different now than it was back then. But now everybody's got their kid trying to be an actor. But, you know, back then it was a limited pool that was doing it. And my sister was already in the business. My older sister, Carrie, she was already doing commercials and modeling stuff like that for kids' catalogs and whatnot. And I just happened to be with my sister for a shoot that she was doing. And she was working with some baby that like wouldn't stop crying. And my sister was like recommended, hey, my brother's in the car. We can put him in this outfit. And they did it. And it worked, and they called me to come back the next week. And so before I even could learn how to crawl or walk or talk, I was already in the business. So my first, you know, I was doing commercials when I was still in a high chair. So, I got in and I got in when Bitcoin was at zero.
Yeah, for acting.
Yes, but back then there was maybe a small pool of kids that were working actors at that point, and I was one of them. And now there's thousands of people trying to be actors, so it's like a different world right now. But yeah, that's how I got in back then. And I was like a cute little kid that like could talk and follow direction and remember the lines. It's like these are all
to be like I've seen before with kid actors. One of the problems is you have to basically like parrot the line to them. Like
right.
Be like,
I don't recall ever. Yeah, I don't recall ever really having that type of direction. I think I got it like pretty early, but again, I was doing it before I even knew how to talk, so that might explain why. And it's funny, the thing that I grew up sort of doing and being trained my whole life to do, which is acting, is like the thing that I like almost do the least of as an adult.
Now you're writing and
now I'm writing and directing and producing and trying to like find my highs doing other things. But at the end of the day, I would love to just, a guy like you calls me, hey, we're doing this thing. Like I would, at the end of the day, like that's what I know how to do. I know how to shoot baskets. I've been shooting baskets on the driveway since I was 4. And that's what I know how to do. So it's like, I'm still waiting for some teams to call me and be like, hey, we need a guy to come shoot threes.
Dude, we're still gonna do it. Do you remember the comedy that we were gonna do together? I still wrote it. It's about or I still have it, and we're gonna do it hopefully soon. But remember, it was gonna be me, you, and we were talking about me, you, and Rupert Grint.
Right.
Doing
what happened to that?
That, I mean, so basically it got to the point where I could have made it for like nothing. And like, I would have been able to make it, but I wouldn't have been able to like fly you in from Toronto to do it. You know what I mean? Or like it would have had to have been like all local. And I was like, I just don't want it to be that thing that like, it's like, oh, you spent some money on it. So I made it my mission at that point. I was like, all right, I'm going to go out and get to the point where I can just make my own movies with my own money and don't have to try and
keep buying. Bitcoin keeps going up. Maybe you can do that.
Oh yeah. Trust me, man. That's a plan. But yeah, I mean, it's
like you could actually shoot a movie for like 5 Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, that's easily. And it's funny. I was trying to think of a way to like incorporate.
If somebody listening wants to make a movie and they have 5 Bitcoin, let us know.
Let us know, and we will turn that 5 Bitcoin into 10 Bitcoin. Because I just couldn't think of a way to like convince somebody like, hey, you should give me your Bitcoin to make this movie. It because it's going to make more money just sitting there as Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But if people want to diversify,
it's also like a value investment. If someone's really rich and wants to write off a loss, invest in a movie.
Yeah, write off a loss. That's a great investment pitch.
I mean, literally, you could pay it in taxes, or you could have your name on the movie. Yeah. Which one do you want?
Yeah, no, that's one of the pitches for those that don't know the industry. It's like
it's like a tax.
Do you want to spend that $1 million in taxes, or like Stu said, or you can get your name? You give me $1 million. And not
lose the $1 million, but you're being executive producer, and you might make money on your loss because it's still a movie. So, like, if it becomes a hit, all of a sudden that loss becomes a positive gain. The easiest way to make $100,000 write off, $100,000 loss, is to invest $100,000 into a movie.
Hope none of our investors are listening.
Well, maybe they were happy because they needed those write-offs.
Yeah, that's true. So what's the funniest thing, like most random thing that, I mean, I know you're like not a name dropper or whatever, but like most random thing that ever happened in your career where people be like, oh my God, you were, even if it was just an episode of a show. I mean, I could go through your whole IMDb, but like any random stories from being a child actor where it's like, whoa, that's how life was as a child actor.
Yeah. I mean, there's just too many to pick just one, but, off the top of my head, my sister was a huge fan of Beverly Hills 90210, and I figured out I had to get on that show somehow. And no matter what, like I had to figure out how the hell am I going to get on that show, because my sister watched every week. She was obsessed with it. And so I managed to get into a casting for one of the episodes. Now the kids on 90210 were older than me, so I couldn't play one of their contemporaries. the only way I would get into the show is to play like some bit part. Like there wasn't like, there's a kid in distress or there's like a reason why would there be a kid on the show? Like there wasn't that
ice cream cone that got knocked over.
Exactly. So there's not that many opportunities for like a kid on that show. There's not too many kid parts or characters that are younger than those leads at that time. So there was a storyline on like season like 100 where like David Silver, Brian Austin Green's character, like is going through like financial trouble. Like, he locked himself out of his crypto wallet. He like couldn't get his money. So he had to get a job working at like a Urban Outfitters or something. So there was like a small kind of bit walk-on part that had only a few lines. That's like a customer in the Urban Outfitters, and like Brian Austin Green sort of interacts with the character, and then like his boss sees him not working and fires him from the job. So it's like I auditioned for that. I was completely overqualified for the role because this was like somebody that was like looking to pick up a couple lines and put it on the resume. But I was like, wanted to be on 90210 because I wanted my sister to see like me show up on 90210. So I auditioned for this part and I got the part. And so I end up being on 90210. And so my sister didn't really realize that I was on it, or, I wasn't like, guess what? I'm on 90210. And basically like, maybe she knew, but like her friends, like everybody watched that show. That was like her generation's like favorite show. So it's like, it surprised the hell out of everybody who's watching it. And like their Stu just shows up on a random scene getting David. And people were like, what? So that was a fun one. I mean, that's not necessarily the best story, but it's a good one. Yeah. And, I get checks for like $3 every year for those reruns.
For the 90210 reruns.
Yeah. So I gotta put that into theory.
Put that into the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Dollar cost average your 90210 royalties into Bitcoin. So did when you moved, how old were you when you moved to LA?
I first went out there when I was 16, and then I like didn't really have like, I didn't understand the legalities of someone from Canada going into the States trying to get work. And because I was 16. And I was auditioning for parts, getting the part, and couldn't do the job because I had to get a visa and this and that and the other thing. So I went back to Toronto. And when I was applying for my visa to go back, I ended up booking like a ton of stuff. Like my time in LA at 16, I'd already been in a bunch of shows, obviously, at that point. But when I came back from LA, it was like something clicked or something. And then that's when the Magic School Bus happened. And I did this other movie called The Boys Club with Devin. That's where I met Devin. I did this Disney Channel show called Flash Forward. And all of a sudden my visa application became like no problem. And then I went back to LA the following year and I just stayed. And I moved out there with Devin, was my roommate, Devin and Phil Glasser.
Yeah.
So me and Devin and Phil, we were roommates when we were 18 years old. Phil may have been 17. And we just like we first lived in a studio apartment. The three of us lived in a studio apartment together.
Nice.
And we got kicked out of there pretty quickly. And then we ended up in Encino in this like, 3-bedroom sort of like family complex where we're like families lived in these units and then teenage insane people. We ruined the living experience for everybody in that complex. But we were like, we had some good times, man. But that's where I got out to LA.
Phil living off of his 5 Goes West money.
Yeah, Phil. Well, here's the funny thing. So Phil was we're talking about this guy, Phil. He was the voice of Fievel the Mouse in the American Tail movies, legend. So at that point, Phil had already been a couple of years since American Tail. Those checks had already been cashed a long time ago at that point. Yeah. But McDonald's randomly in like 1997, I want to say 97, but randomly McDonald's ran this like Happy Meal promotion that if you buy a Happy Meal, you can buy a copy of like Look Who's Talking or American Tail 2, Fievel Goes West, or Bad News Bears. I don't know. I'm making up titles, but like Fievel Goes West was one of the options. And they ended up through this Happy Meal program selling like some 2 million copies of American Tail. And Phil had piece of that action from his contract.
Yeah.
And so all this money came in, and Phil was like riding high off Fievel all over again.
And probably came to him at the worst possible time. I know he's told me.
I mean, it's the worst possible time because he was like a teenager who like didn't have somebody looking after the money. And so we were just like having the best time with that Fievel money.
I asked him one time, I said, what happened? You know, like, and he was like, he's like, you ever heard the phrase drugs and rock and roll? I was like, I didn't know you were in a rock and roll band. He's like, I wasn't.
Well, he kind of was.
Yeah. Well, you guys had was that with Jamie Kennedy? You guys had
before Jamie. I was with Phil. Me and Phil used to entertain everybody at the parties. We had a little rap duo going back then. But yeah, Phil's a family man now, and
he's a great man.
He's doing well. He's got 3 kids. He's got a beautiful family. His wife is a nice lady. And he's producing big stuff. He's doing big stuff. But that's how we met, because Phil was producing movies in Pittsburgh at that point, and you were working on those productions, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's how that worked. And then Phil actually was the first person I talked to get advice for getting into distribution. I was like, all right, dude, I want to do this. What do I need? And he was like, all right, I've delivered a bunch of movies. This is what you need, blah, 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 blah. And like went through like the QC, how all that stuff that needs to be done. And yeah.
So is that your primary business now?
Yeah. So we also launched a streaming platform, which is something I wanted to talk to you about once we're done recording. So yeah, it was a streaming platform called My Movies Plus. Yeah, we got some things going on there. So yeah, I'm just doing straight like handling distribution, producing some small things, and then launching the streaming platform. We're gonna start producing some bigger stuff here as well.
And what about crypto? Is that your like main gimmick?
No, crypto is like literally
you like doing a podcast. Obviously it's like it's a part of your life.
Yeah. So what I decided was, I was like, you know what, I need to learn more about it, because I literally went like all in last spring. And I was like, I need to learn more. So the best way to learn is to interview people about it and talk about it. So I figured this year, I was like, I could set aside 5 hours a week to, you know, like organize interviews, get people on, and, you know, just I could afford to spend that time doing that, and it would be worthwhile. So yeah, so that's the Bitcoin. And I'm also doing a documentary called Searching for Satoshi. So there is, you know, a film.
You gonna find him?
Probably not. I don't think so. I don't think he exists anymore.
Find Brock. Maybe find Brock. He'll tell you where he is.
I'll have to interview Brock for it. I'll get him in it. We're going to the Bitcoin conference in a month. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like my two worlds have merged, where like this Bitcoin thing was like a fun hobby, and now I'm like, you know, doing a podcast about Bitcoin. And the weird,
I was kind of surprised, to be honest, that you were doing a thing on Bitcoin. It's the last thing I would have expected you to be doing a podcast on. But
I know, me as well. You know, like I got this book about deflationary economics for Christmas, and my whole family looked at me.
Wow, what a Christmas ask that was! You sat down on Santa's lap and asked for that?
Yeah, they were like, "What do
you want for Christmas? A book about deflationary values."
Yeah, they were like, what in the world is going on? Because like I usually ask for like toys. Like at this age, I still ask for toys like drones and like, you know, random like R2D2 like app enabled, you know, the Sphero R2D2.
Sure, yeah.
It's like that's what I'm known for. And then they they busted out this book, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want. But no, yeah. So I find it fascinating because it's kind of like interesting to watch like the old crony banking world just like collapse on itself.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a scary world out there financially for sure. There's uncertainty, and there's definitely access to more information where people can go and learn about things like what you've learned about that previously maybe they wouldn't have known about. And there's definitely, you know, it's an echo chamber of like people love conspiracies and, you know,
oh yeah,
gravitate towards conspiracies. And I think Bitcoin essentially like attracts a lot of that stuff naturally, just because people are just like so like confused about what it is. And also, like you said, the whole kind of fundamental goals of where Bitcoin's headed, it kind of depends on the collapse of the economy, of the fiat economy. So you're sort of on the craps table betting, like, don't come, like you're betting against the house by betting on Bitcoin, and usually, or you're betting with the house, I guess. No, you're betting against the house.
But the house doesn't know that the odds are
Right.
against them.
Right.
So the house just thinks that the casino's running like normal, and everything's going to the profits will keep coming in, and then all of a sudden it's just going to.
And there's a disruptor. Listen, it's going to be I still say that it's very early for Bitcoin, even though it has been around now for over 10 years, and it is obviously at an all-time record high right now. And at the same time, it's still very early in the game. So where it goes, I don't know. I can't predict. If you can somehow convince, wrapping this up and back to baseball cards, those same, let's just say 10,000 people, or we'll go higher than that. The same 100,000 collectors that never went away after that first bubble burst in the 90s are still the same 100,000 collectors, that they're still the same base. 30 years later, it's still those same 100,000 people with new kind of people coming on top of them. But if Bitcoin and cryptocurrency can get a core group of adopters that is in that range, then it'll never go away, because there'll always be people playing in it. There's still people paying for somewhere. I don't know who, but there's still 20,000 people still. There must be somebody. They keep making it, so somebody's still paying for it. So it's like, Bitcoin has that audience, or that engagement with a community, we'll call it. And if that community is all in like you are, then there's longevity there. If people get bored of baseball cards, it's over. If people probably won't get bored of Bitcoin, because you're dealing with money, and everybody loves money. Yeah.
Well, it's funny that's what Satoshi put in the original, I think in the white paper. He said it has the potential for a positive feedback loop, where, people buy it, it goes up in value, their friends hear about it, so their friends buy it, and then it goes up in value again, and their friends, and it just kind of keeps feeding on itself. Yeah,
listen, the best thing that can happen for a casino is for somebody to hit the jackpot. Somebody wins $30,000 on a jackpot. That's the best advertisement, because everybody wants to come in and play, and they want to win the 30,000. So Bitcoin, I guess, you have a better chance maybe of making that 30,000 playing crypto than you do on a slot machine. But good luck to everybody. And I would proceed with caution and keep both eyes open. Don't just jump in the pool with your eyes closed and swim and hope to find something. You got to kind of know what you're getting into. And even the experts don't completely know what the hell they're getting into in this instance. I think there's still so much to learn, so much to uncover. A guy like yourself, who's smart, educated, well-spoken, hosting a podcast, even there's things that you don't know yet. So it's like, I think that it's still relatively early in the game, and there's a lot of opportunities to be had. And obviously guys like Elon Musk, that's not, and financial institutions, and, the more sort of mainstream people sort of get in, hey,
I'm going to blur them out for weirdos on YouTube. But here,
the more mainstream stuff that comes in, hey, then the better it's going to be for them. How are you?
Here, I think this should work for the audio.
Hello.
Do remember who I told you I was talking to today?
Ralphie. Yeah, you watch Magic School Bus?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's your favorite character?
I don't know who.
Well, you like Lizzie
you like Arnold? Who do you like? Lizzie the Lizard?
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Frizzle?
Yep.
And Arnold?
Everybody.
Carlos?
Yep.
He makes funny jokes, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do more voices than did you do any side voices for random characters?
Yeah, of course. Well, on the new one, that's what I do. On the new series, I play a lot of random people, like
so
the reboot.
The older people now.
Yes, now I'm the older people. Now I'm like the science teacher, the gas station guy.
That's the new one too.
Yeah.
And
Cool. So now you're going to do a cartoon. I heard you're doing a cartoon. And you're going to do the voices?
I'm the main character, Eraser.
Eraser?
Yeah.
Is he a superhero or is he an eraser?
He's a race car that's in.
Oh, a racer. A racer. I thought you said eraser like a pencil eraser. You're talking about a racer.
He's a race car that erases things in a preschool classroom.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, whenever all the kids go home, he comes out and he erases everything, and that's how he learns.
Yeah.
Wow. So he's in a race. He's a racer who's in a racer.
Yeah.
The eraser.
We're also making books about him. We are even getting new characters. Eraser is the only one we've done so far.
And you're going to do more characters.
Stu said that he would want to do a voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, so keep working on it, man. That sounds like a great idea.
There's Marcus the Marker.
Marcus the Marker?
That'd be a good candidate for you.
There's also Tabby the Tablet.
The Tablet, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got a handful of characters so far.
Penny the pencil sharpener?
It's actually Penny the Pencil.
Penny the pencil.
Penny the Pencil.
Yep.
Trying to remember the other ones. But yeah, man, like that's one of the things I was going to talk to you about once we're done recording, because
Frank the Chalk. That's not a good one. The Chalk. Is there a piece of chalk that has a name?
No.
We should not yet. Like Charlie Chalk or something. That'd be good.
I know, Chalky Chalk.
Chalky Chalk.
Chalky Chalk. Yeah, that's
kind of like Marky Mark, you know.
Chalky Chalk.
Could make him like the rapper.
Sure.
Which could be your character.
Yeah, it could be Chalky Chalk
because you can rap. But yeah, that's
Bella the School Bell.
What's that?
Bella the School Bell.
Bella the School Bell.
Yeah.
TikTok the Clock.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like what? I don't know if you've ever seen like Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, where they like it's like where they talk like, oh, you know, do you know what that is? Like what number?
Yeah,
that is?
Blue's Clues.
Yep. Yeah. So
Dora.
His little brother, he wants to make sure we get it out so his little brother will watch it.
Well, there you go. You got at least one person to watch the show, so we're on our way. That's scalable.
Yeah, exactly.
Get out before my little brother is too old for it.
Yeah, you better hurry up then.
Yeah, got like 100 more episodes left, and I don't think we're gonna get enough in time for once he is old enough for them.
Well, you got to try your hardest, man. That's all you can do. Yeah. How old are you?
5.
You're already 5?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're not a little boy at all. You're a big kid.
Yeah, I go
5.
to preschool. So next year I'm going to kindergarten.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Do you like that?
Yeah.
Tell him what did you play? What do you play? What team do you play?
Oh, I play for Pirates.
Wow. Pirates? What position do you play?
What?
What do you play?
Well, you play all different positions.
Yeah.
Which one's your favorite?
My favorite is third in outfield and
third in outfield. You got that gun from third base?
He does actually. He makes it all the way across the diamond. He can make a throw to first base.
I heard that you
I even like first base because I like catching a lot.
Yeah. And when
time I was first base, I was afraid. And last time I was first base, which was last night, I wasn't at all afraid.
That's great. I used to love playing first base too because that's where all the action is.
Yeah, and pitcher.
Yeah, and pitcher too. You know who you want to know who my favorite baseball team is?
What?
The Toronto Blue Jays.
My favorite team is the Pirates.
Yeah. Sometimes the Pirates play against each other with the Blue Jays.
Who's your second favorite team?
the Blue Jays. And guess what? Last night, the team we were playing was called the Blue Jays. So it was like Major League Baseball, the Pirates versus the Blue Jays.
And who won?
The Pirates.
Yeah.
And last game we won, so 2 in a row games winning.
A 2-game winning streak?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I got to bet on the 3rd game. When's the lines coming out?
It should come out in probably 3 days. Yeah.
Got to get on that.
And the
Pirates.
he loves the Blue Jays, and
who's your favorite player on the
Blue Jays?
Who's your favorite player on the Pirates?
So my favorite player that plays now is Polanco, and my favorite player that used to play is McCutcheon.
Kutch.
Yeah.
And I
He's so cute.
even have a jersey my jersey for the Pirates.
Oh, you do?
McCutcheon's number.
Oh my God. Are you as good as McCutcheon?
Yeah.
You are?
Yep. I'm the captain of the team too.
Holy smokes. You're the captain?
Yep.
Oh my God. You are something special, man. I guess keep working hard and maybe you'll be in the majors like him.
Yeah.
Where does he play now?
Remember we talked about that?
That's so crazy. So
He
McCutcheon
caught a ball at that game.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Must have been like 3 years old. 2.
Yeah, I think you were 3 at the time.
We went to a Pirates game the one night, and I got a ball from a Polanco, and I got another ball not from Polanco, not even from a player.
Yeah, you
How
got
did you get? How are you catching all these balls? Where are you sitting?
I don't even know how I catch all these balls.
it was like shooting fish in a barrel with like limited attendance. So like usually there's like a bunch of kids sitting there, and like Polanco turned around and like there was 2 kids and he was one of them. That's you're allowed. I think there were like 3,000 or 4,000 people in the whole stadium.
Gregor Polanco?
Yeah.
Yep.
What? He's an outfielder?
Yeah, right field.
So all the stars have gone, and now you're just left with Polanco?
Yeah, pretty much. It's downhill. So, but
I guess Musgrove's not there anymore.
no, and he goes to San Diego and throws a no-hitter.
And Josh Bell's not there.
They traded him on Christmas Eve. That was wonderful. A great Christmas present. To all of us Pirate fans.
Well, he hasn't really done much since, so you guys probably got easy there.
But
I'm really rooting for you, man. So good luck with the Pirates. Good luck. I hope you win the championship.
Thanks.
say thanks. All right, I'm gonna finish up. Okay.
Okay.
Say bye. Say bye.
Bye.
Bye. He's great.
Yeah. So he's been wanting to do a podcast, and I knew that the one with Ralphie was going to be the one.
There it is. He's finally on. We've done it.
Yeah.
Moral of the story is that baseball cards are back. Crypto is back. So if they have something in common, they're both back, and they both came from pretty volatile places to come back to stronger than they were the first time.
Yeah.
That's a great comparison there, because baseball cards were like that, then they were like that, and now they're like that. That's what happened in crypto. It was like that to 17,000. That was like the benchmark. Then it was like that, and now it's like so.
Yep. And it'll just keep riding that train, and yeah, and you can. So the movie, it's not on Netflix anymore, right?
It's not on Netflix anymore. It's on Tubi in the States.
Okay.
And I think it's also like on demand if you have like Amazon or any of these other type of streaming services. And
where else can people find you? What else do you have going on?
I have a new movie coming out called Faking a Murderer, which I'll send you an advanced copy so you can check it out.
Oh, nice.
But it's like a true crime.
Yeah, like making of a murder. Like
it's like a true crime movie if like I was the investigator, and that's actually what it is. It's like a really funny true crime movie. If there's such a thing, that's what it is. So I'll send it to you to check out, but it's coming out in August, and it's called Faking a Murderer. And it's basically for all the people that like have been obsessed with the true crime genre that's exploded in the last 5 years. We've sort of taken that and turned it on its head. And we went on a pretty wild ride. So
Nice.
that's coming in August, called Faking a Murder. And
You know
of
where
course,
it's going to be yet, or?
I don't know yet. I just know that it's coming in August. I'll find out though. And then Dark Side of the Ring, which I worked on, premieres May 6th on Vice, the new episodes, season 3. There's episodes on Ultimate Warrior, the British Bulldog, Dynamite Kid, Brian Pillman. There's a lot of really great episodes for people who are wrestling fans. And even if you're not a wrestling fan, it's a pretty captivating show. So that's on Vice TV in the States, Dark Side of the Ring, May 6th.
Awesome. And at Stu Stone, right? That's the
At Stu Stone. That's the easiest way. I mean, that's what you did.
Yeah. In the I tagged you in it, and in the baseball card doc is the at baseball card doc and
At baseball card doc, yeah. So and then we've got just you'll find me and you'll figure it out. And let's do this again. And definitely keep me posted if you get any of your projects going. And
yeah,
you never know. Maybe we'll be working again.
I hope so.
Yeah,
All right,
me
man,
too.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. Best of luck with everything. And hodl, always hodl.
Yes, hodl to the end.